haven't really thought about it, but yeah, I mean, you have to buy into what the character's going through. Obviously, the world of gambling and somebody with any kind of addiction, whether it's gambling, food, drugs, booze, there is a certain kind of inevitable sense of peril that the story is going to be saturated in, and the character's journey is going to be saturated in. So yeah, they seem to be always close to either breaking free of, but more often than not, being consumed by, to their detriment, of course, whatever the addiction is. And one of the things I loved about this story was that when we meet him, we don't really get into the backstory. He's never really winning. He's just kind of on the precipice of falling into the void, which he does, 5 minutes in, or even when he wakes up, the first line when he says fuck, he's not having a good time. Yeah. I wouldn't, for obvious reasons, just because I'm living in my life, I wouldn't compare, but I see what you mean. I certainly was getting through about 100 Marlboro Red a day doing phone booth, and I didn't have the accompaniment or the companionship of tobacco on this one. Yeah, phone booth was a blast. Phone booth was 9 days from start to finish.
Crazy. The
whole thing, yeah, it was madness. So my own kind of sense of inner turmoil and chaos and stress was just next level on phone booth, more so than on this. I mean, this was good, old-fashioned, exhausting work as far as what we do for a living can be. But phone booth was next level. It was just stress from start to finish. I remember the sun was setting on the last day that we were shooting, and the shadow being cast by the buildings in downtown LA was encroaching towards the phone booth. And once it hits the phone booth, we were done. And it was the last day, and we had a bunch of shots to get, and we had 5 cameras. Maddie Lebatique was the cinematographer. It was super exciting. Yeah, the trajectory over the last 25 years, of course, informs how I moved through it, but more the trajectory of my life outside of it informs things, I suppose, just in all sorts of ways that are hard to clinically point out. I love it now more than I ever did. I love it now more. And the couple of things that have been received attention through the years have been really nice. But you move on from it very quick. I've done things that haven't worked at all for people. I've done things that have worked for people. And while you choose the latter rather than the former every time, you move on from the stuff that really works as well, and every time you go to work, one of the beautiful things about what we do, every time you go to work, it's like the first time. It really is. You don't feel like just because of something that you've done in the past, you have any kind of access to any mastery or any certainty. It defies certainty, really, this job. There's no quote-unquote right way to do it or wrong way to do it. There's just interpretation. So that's what keeps it fresh, and it's still as nerve-wracking as it ever was, and I'm still filled with as much uncertainty as I've ever been.
I was just fascinated by this one poet whom I didn't know much about, but I know of him for many years, and I was just bought a bunch of his poem. His name is Heizi. He's Chinese, and without spoiling what happens to my character, they have kind of very similar fate and decisions that they made in their lives to my character. So I just loved his poetry, his imagination, and it really gave me a lot of starting point or experience feeling him. And he was also living around the same period as kind of Dao Ming's childhood in a way, so a lot of imagery and locations that I imagine they might share. So.
Text me him later, will you?
In Chinese? You're going to read it?
Just his name, and I'll see if I can find translations.
Yeah. Oh, maybe, yeah. I'm sure,
Okay.